All right, now we're going to export this brochure one more time, but this time using Illustrator so we can get these same printer marks and fold guides on there. So I'm going to go ahead and close this document we made from InDesign. We'll jump over into Illustrator and create a new document here. We'll set the number of artboards to 2 for the inside and the outside. The spacing here is fine, but I'll give us a little more space to work. I'll just hit 1 inch there so we have more space between the artboards. And let's see what else. We want to set the width to 12 inches wide, 9 inches tall. Set your bleed to an 1/8 of an inch, so 0.125 inches. Make sure we're in CMYK and 300 pixels per inch here. I'll hit OK. And now we get a new document here with 2 artboards. So we're going to come up here to File, Place, and we're going to throw in those final files we made. So let's start with the outside. We'll hit Place. And I'll click once in there, and same thing, I'm going to come up here to my options bar and make sure I'm aligning to the artboard, and we'll do those center alignments here, and then we'll place the next one. So we'll go to File, down to Place, and choose the inside of the brochure. Now one thing, notice when I place these are actually linked, and we did the same thing with InDesign too, but I didn't mention it. But with this linked, if we go back through and export a new file with the same name and we replace this, it will dynamically pull in to this Illustrator file with the updated version. This is really handy if a client changes their mind. All you have to do, jump into the original Photoshop document, make your change, save a PDF, and then open your Illustrator or InDesign document, and that link will have automatically updated, and then you can export everything again as one whole batch. It's really slick, and it makes it a lot easier to work with. So okay, I'm gonna leave that linked. I'll hit Place. We'll click once in there and just center this up here. All right, so that looks good. Now in Illustrator, we don't have the option for a slug area like we did before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to my Layers panel. I'll double click, and just like we did with InDesign, we'll create a new layer called Artwork. We'll create another layer on top. We'll call this Guides. Actually, let's call this Folds, because that's what we're going to put on this layer, is the folds. So what we need to do is tell this where to fold. Now I'm going to have to do a little bit of measuring because I don't really have the margin set in front of me like we did with InDesign. So what I'll do is hit the letter M to get my rectangle tool, and I will change this. I'll turn off my stroke and come back to my fill, and let's just change this to a bright color that we can see really easy. How about full magenta here? I'll click and drag, and now what I want to do is I'll hit the letter E. And then up here at the top, we see this transform button. We'll click on that, and we're just going to key in the exact width we want this. So this was going to be 4 inches wide, so 4 inches. And I don't really care how tall it is because this is just going to be a guide for the width where the folds are going to be. So now what I'll do is I'll drag this into place, and I'll have it snap. It doesn't seem to want to snap, so let me just check and make sure that is turned on. Snap to grid, snap to point. Okay. So now let's just come up here and make sure that we're getting it exactly where we want it to be. And that snap to grid is actually messing me up a little bit. So let's turn that back off. And I'm just going to use my alignment here to set that to the top and left of my thing here. So all right, so we can see that that is falling in line perfectly. So that's good news. I do have my measurements set up correctly. So I'll click once on this. I'll hit Command R to make sure my rulers are showing up here. And I can just drag out from the left side here a new guide, or I can click and drag from the top and then hold down Alt to flip it, and it's going to snap to that shape there. I'll drag a copy, and this time what I'll do, actually I don't even need a copy, what I'll do is I'll just throw this all the way to the right side, drag down another guide here, and that should snap into place. So there are my guides, but that doesn't help the printer at all. So what we're going to do is actually, well, probably the quickest way is just get my direct selection tool. I'll highlight this corner here, and I'll shift click this corner here and delete those, and now all of a sudden I just have 2 lines here. I'll hit Shift X or click on this to flip that from a fill to a stroke, and now we can see if I turn off my guides that we have that bright pink bar right there. Okay, so now I can drag a copy of this over to where my other fold needs to be. I'll shift click both of these and I'll make it full screen here. And then let's change this to a dotted stroke. So click on the stroke here. I'll turn that on my dashed line here. And then in big bright pink letters, I'm going to type fold. And that way, hopefully the printer realizes this is not a design element, and they'll remember to turn that layer off. But that way you'll catch it. You can see where that fold's going to be. So we've done that once, and let's click on these shapes here. Command C to copy. Actually, I'm going to Command X. I'm going to cut it. We'll come back into my layers and make sure we're on that folds layer. Command F to paste. And then I'll click once on this to target this artboard. But when I did that, it changed to my other layer. So I'll come back up here and target that folds layer and hit Command F to paste it in front. So you can see where my folds are supposed to fall. All right. So now let's go ahead and save this document. Command S to save. And we'll call this Final Brochure. And I'll stick this one in my Illustrator folder here. Hit save. And that all looks good. I'll hit OK. Now what we need to do is export this. So what I'm going to do is go to File, Save As. We don't want to hit Export because I want to save a PDF. And a PDF option isn't in Export. So we'll go to Save As. And we'll go find that Finals folder. Alright, it's a really long name, but that way we know what it is. Okay, I'll click on the drop down on the format bar here, and we want to select a PDF. I'll hit save. And now what we're going to do, we'll leave Preserve Illustrator Editing Capabilities turned on. That's fine. We can even click View PDF after saving, so it opens it up for us automatically. Our compression should be fine. It's actually not compressing at all, so that's great. Marks and bleeds, this is where we want to turn on all of our printer marks, but we don't have the slug area like we did before, which is why we dropped that stuff on a separate layer on top. And then we'll use the document bleed settings we set up. So let's go ahead and hit Save PDF. And there we can see we've got our fold marks right on top of the document. The printers will definitely see that. We've got our trim marks. It looks a little bit different than what it came out of InDesign, but this is going to work perfect. And then once they're ready to print this, what they can do is come in through Acrobat Pro, click on this layers icon, and they can actually turn on and off those folds or those crop marks even if they wanted to, and print exactly how they need to. So that's how I would export it if I was trying to show folds from Illustrator.